Welcome to this episode of Stranger Stitches. I'm going to shine a light into some dark corners of history and some tragedies of true crime. I'll sprinkle in just enough sweet tea and southern charm to keep it all very civilized. Y'all know that this is not a news story, and we're just going to sit here on the porch and tell tales like folks do. So pick your poison, sit that shapely ass down, and buckle up, Buttercup. Today, I'd like to talk to y'all about murder by snake bite. Well, I was digging through some articles looking for something a little more unusual that I could talk to y'all about, and I found some articles from India where it's becoming the more trendy way to try to do away with somebody is to use a snake. Well, I kept digging because y'all know I can't leave anything alone. And I found another article where it wasn't a snake being used to kill somebody, but that poor old snake was sure trying to get the blame. Here's what happened in my first story. Down in New Florence, Missouri, Ben Rennick was living the dream. He's 29 years old, built himself quite an operation at Rennick Reptiles. He had over 3,000 snakes that he'd sell for sometimes thousands of dollars apiece. Folks in the reptile community knew his name and respected him. But on June 8th, 2017, that dream turned into a nightmare. Ben's wife, Lindley, found him face down in a pool of his own blood at his breeding facility. She screamed and called for his brother Sam to come and see what had happened before either one of them called 911. After a minute, they called them together. It had to be a snake, Sam told the emergency responders, figuring one of those dangerous serpents had finally gotten the best of his brother. Well, that assumption don't last long. Ben hadn't been killed by a snake. He'd been shot 8 times. Well, now what follows is the twisted tale and a cold-blooded murder. At the scene of the crime, they found his skull was crushed. So his first thought was it was the snakes. Sam told Dateline years later, well, you can't blame him for thinking that. Ben worked with some of the most dangerous reptiles on Earth. But let me clarify a little something that was made clear to me. When a venomous snake strikes, it usually is quick, but it's brutal. The fangs puncture deep, injecting venom that can shut down your nervous system or destroy your blood cells from the inside out. Some snake bites will make you bleed from every orifice of your body. With constrictors, like the reticulate pythons he had, death comes much more slowly. Those coils wrap around you, squeezing tighter and tighter with every exhale until your ribs crack and your heart can't pump anymore. Either way, snakes leave distinctive marks. Fang punctures, massive swelling, telltale bruising of a constrictor's grip. But let me tell you what I also know. A snake is not going to kill something it can't eat. It might do a defensive strike to, bite somebody that they feel threatened by. But I think Ben would have known, okay, snake bites can happen because snakes are going to snake. But if a constrictor had done this, it would not have been wrapped around him, crushing just his head. And if the snake had intended to eat him, that would have been one massive snake that could not have gotten away or found a place to hide very easily. But I'm going to get off that soapbox and get on with the story. When coroner Dave Colbert arrived, he spotted something that changed the whole story. He found a shell casing sitting on the shelf right above Ben's head. He says, "When I saw that shell casing, I knew this was not from a snake." Well, that didn't take Sherlock. He said this is something much more heinous. I believe he was right. Well, the coroner's findings painted a very grim picture. Ben had been shot 8 times, mostly in the back, with one bullet fired at point-blank range to his head. No snake leaves behind shell casing. No serpent fired them bullets. This wasn't some random act of violence or a tragic accident with his beloved reptiles. Sam, the brother, says, I don't think he saw it coming at all. Ben had such a future ahead of him, and a lot was lost. You think, Sam? You think? So the investigation unfolds for 3 long years. Ben's case went colder than the Missouri winter. Detectives had their suspicions but couldn't get any solid leads. Initially, they looked real hard at Sam. It seems that Sam had been thinking about, oh, I'm sorry. It seems that Ben had been thinking about selling the New Florence property where Sam was living, and investigators wondered if that had stirred up some bad blood between the brothers. Sam was a heavy suspect. Missouri State Highway Patrol investigator Devin Faust told People magazine in 2022, and the seed was definitely planted, but Sam cooperated fully, gave them his phone, his clothes. He took a polygraph. I don't know how y'all feel about polygraphs, but he provided his alibi. When the gun residue test came back negative, the investigators' theory was starting to fall apart. That's when investigators turned their attention toward Lindley. Her co-worker, Ashley Shaw, came forward with some very damning allegations. Lindley had been carrying on with 2 different men. Shaw claimed that a month before Ben died, Lindley had even plotted to poison him with a protein shake laced with 15 Percocet pills. Now, Miss Lindley didn't do her research very well. A protein shake is not going to cover the taste of that, and I don't think that anybody would have consumed something that would have tasted like 15 Percocet. Well, over the following months, detectives interviewed Lindley 6 times. She failed a polygraph. I don't know how you feel about that still, but they'd never had enough evidence to make an arrest. Finally, there's a break in the case. In 2020, the case is finally cracked wide open when Brandon Blackwell, an incarcerated man who claimed he'd been dating Lindley after Ben's death, came forward with a confession that would change everything. According to Blackwell, Lindley had told him the whole sordid story, how she and her ex-boyfriend, Michael Humphrey, had driven out to the farm that night and how Humphrey had brought gloves and a gun and planned to do the deed himself. So they get there. He hands the gun to her and says he doesn't feel comfortable doing it. Well, no shit, Michael. You shouldn't feel comfortable. But he also said it's something that she's got to take care of. Blackwell told the investigators, and that's per CBS News, she walks in with the gun and just shoots him a bunch of times. That was the quote. On January 16th, 2020, police arrested both Lindley and Humphrey for the murder. It took us years to find out that Lindley was leading a double life and that she was lying, bold-faced lying. A sociopath, says Sam. If you look that up, Lindley's picture will be sitting there, right there with it. Well, now we know. When the trials came around in 2021, both defendants pointed fingers at each other like a couple of little kids tattling on each other. Humphrey went first in 2021, about October, and he got convicted of first-degree murder, but hoping to get his sentence reduced, he helped find the murder weapon and testified against Lindley, claiming he'd given her the gun, but she was the one that actually pulled the trigger. Okay, both of y'all were there. Okie dokie. He says that he heard a shot come out, and she was at the end of the corridor, posted up like this with the gun. He testified while he demonstrated the posture of her body and shouldering a rifle. Lindley told a different story entirely, claiming that Humphrey was the shooter, and she was just an unwilling witness. I walked up right behind Michael, and then Michael turned around and saw a gun in his hands, and then I heard shots ring out, she said. I screamed and ran outside, said the little lion heifer. Well, the jury didn't buy it. They found Lindley guilty of second-degree murder and armed criminal action, sentencing her to 16 years behind bars. She and her boyfriend took a life, and she gets 16 years. Humphrey's conviction was not reduced to second-degree murder, but he still received life without parole. Oh, yeah, both of them should have got life. She really believed that she was going to get away with, Sam reflected, and she really believed that she was going to get what she had planned after murdering my brother. Oh, Sam. I don't doubt that maybe Sam might have had his fingers in the pie, but okay, I can suspend that for now. In the end, there are only two things more venomous than Ben Snakes, and it turned out to be the woman that slept with him that night and her boyfriend. A Serpent's Kiss in Kerala. This is the story that got me thinking about all of this stuff. So, halfway around the world from Missouri, a husband was plotting to murder with snakes. But this time, the serpent would be the weapon and not the cover story. In May 2020, down in Kerala, India, 25-year-old Uthra was already fighting for her life. 2 months earlier, she had been bitten by a Russell's viper at her husband's home and spent 52 days bedridden and needed plastic surgery trying to recover. The poor girl was staying at her parents' house in Anchal trying to heal from that first attack, but her husband, Suraj, had other plans. On the night of May 6, 2020, Uthra and her 27-year-old banker husband went to bed like any other night, but come morning, Suraj, who usually slept late, was up early and out of the house. When Uthra's mother went to check on her daughter, she found the young woman unconscious in their air-conditioned room. Now, it becomes important that this room was air-conditioned because it's all sealed up pretty tight. And y'all may know a little snake trivia. A cobra is one of the largest venomous snakes there is, and there was no way this large snake could have gotten into their room on their own. So laying beside Uthra, there was a large cobra. Uthra died the next day, May 7th, 2020. To most folks, it looked like tragic bad luck, lightning striking twice and all, but her daddy wasn't buying it, not for a skinny minute. 1 week after burying his daughter, but, the article said buried. I don't know if she was cremated. That probably would have been more to the tradition, and also taken with it some evidence. But, moving on. Uthra's father marched down to the Kerala police with suspicions that would not quit. Something about this whole mess smelled like day-old catfish. First off, how did that cobra just waltz into an air-conditioned room without nobody seeing or hearing? Second, Uthra had already told her parents that her husband, Suraj, knew his way around venomous snakes. Well, I kind of think that topic would have come up after her first bite. Yeah, that's probably a conversation that they had. But when she moved back in with her parents, why was he allowed to come with her? I don't know. They had a 1-year-old son together, and I don't know. I guess the family was just kept together during the recuperation, and the parents were there to take care of her while everybody else was at work. So investigators called in Vava Suresh, who took one look at both crime scenes and told the family what they already suspected. That Russell's viper could not have reached the second-floor room where Uthra got her first bite. Well, I read that Russell's vipers can climb, but he's the expert. He saw the crime scene, so I'll go with what he says. And that cobra, sure as hell, did not make its way into that sealed room on its own. Well, police arrested Suraj in July 2020, and it didn't take long for him to start singing like a canary. That boy confessed to buying the cobra for around $135 US and admitted to something that'd make your skin crawl. He'd starved that snake for 11 days. Now, I don't think it's uncommon for a snake to go a long time without feeding, but I don't know how long he'd been without eating before he came into Suraj's possession. So, from April 24th to May 6th, just to make sure it was good and hungry and good and angry, when he turned it loose with his sleeping wife. But that wasn't the worst part. Suraj had also drugged Uthra with sleeping pills before releasing the serpent in her room. And that was when he rose early and went outside. Yeah, totally against character. Well, he ensured that she'd never wake up to defend herself. Well, what was his motive? Like a lot of murders, it all came down to money. Suraj wanted his wife's dowry, over 100 gold sovereigns, and a new car the family had given them. He also had taken out an insurance policy on Uthra just months before her death. That greedy sumbitch had even cleared out her bank locker on March 2nd, the very day she got that first snake bite. During the investigation, police arrested Suraj's daddy for burying 38 gold sovereigns of Uthra's gold jewelry in a nearby rubber plantation. His mama and sister got hauled in too, charged with conspiracy and destroying evidence. This case made criminology textbook as the first time anyone in Kerala had used a live animal as a murder weapon. When it came time for trial in October 2021, Judge Majol didn't mess around. He sentenced to Suraj to 17 years plus 2 consecutive life sentences, with a hefty fine thrown in for good measure. I don't know how their sentencing stuff works, but 2 lifetimes plus 17 years seems like a good idea, and they're going to keep him in jail, I hope. The snake catcher who'd sold Suraj the cobra testified that the husband had told him he didn't want to be married to a disabled wife anymore, figuring folks would just chalk her death up to something called Sarpa dosha, the wrath of the snakes, and that's when a snake don't like you. In the South, we have a saying called, that person snake bit. Well, it doesn't mean literally, it means that person has had a string of bad luck. I wonder if that's where that saying comes from. Anyway, those are the stories that grabbed my attention, and I wanted to tell y'all about it. But from these stories, we know that sometimes there is things more venomous than snakes. So, that's me for this episode. I'll see y'all next time.